Hey guys, welcome back. Drip Coach here with Drip and Farm for Poverty, where we don't trust, we verify, and operate with integrity and transparency. Today, bringing a clip to you from Mark Moss, where he brings some data backed information on where Bitcoin can go based solely off of the Trojan Horse Stablecoin Genius Act that got enacted. So remember, this is exactly what Jack Mallers was talking about, what I've been beating the drum on for the past couple of months, that stablecoins will help in the long run to usher in a higher price for Bitcoin because it's a place to dump treasury bonds and support the dollar. And it's a necessary evil for crypto adoption. And remember that Tether is solely responsible for like 60 some odd % of BTC trade volume, meaning that the USDT and BTC pair is the most traded and most liquid trading pair. So for people that are speculating on Bitcoin or even just trying to buy it, you're more than likely going to be buying it via USDT. And USDT is a stable coin, which has a substantial amount of their reserves in treasuries. So that's how this all ties together. So Mark Moss, an OG, tons of data that he supports, and he's going to give you the intro of how he's going to get to this number. So let's play that clip.
I did the math on exactly how high Bitcoin goes under Trump's new 3.7 trillion stablecoin plan. Now, using the same correlation models that we use inside our fund, I've identified 3 distinct scenarios. And even the most conservative projection is going to shock you because when you see and apply these proven mathematical relationships to Treasury Secretary Bessent's official target, we're looking at price levels that will either make you generational wealthy or scratching your head wondering what's happening. Now, I've been building and selling tech companies for decades. I'm a partner at a leading Bitcoin venture fund. I'm an officer of a publicly traded Bitcoin company. Now, this is the same mathematical analysis that we use internally to make million-dollar investment decisions, and now I'm sharing it with you. So let's go. All right, so we're jumping right in, and this is going to be a really fun video because we're gonna look at Bitcoin's future potential price, but we use data, we use analysis. This isn't gut checks, this isn't guesses. Now, I do wanna say real quickly that this is part 2 of a video, so you may wanna go back and watch part 1. We'll link to it down below, but it's about the new Genius Act, which is the stablecoin bill that just got passed in the Trump administration. You have to understand the framework of this to understand, so you might wanna go watch it, but let me give you the clip notes. In part 1, we talked about how the Trump plan, the Trump agenda needs stablecoins and it needs Bitcoin. In order to succeed, to maintain dollar dominance and get the inflation and growth, they need Bitcoin. The Genius plan could convert up to 3.5 trillion in sterilized reserves sitting in the banks and could send them out into the marketplace to get the inflation and growth. But if we get the growth, then we get inflation. If we get inflation, that's bad, so we need a release valve. Where does that go? It goes into Bitcoin. All right, so you have to go back and watch that video to understand all.
And again, hopefully if you've been watching into my content, you'll know that that's the exact same framework Jack has been preaching about. So it seems like others are coming along. Jack has been the one that I've seen say this the longest and the clearest, but it might also be similar framework tied into, well, actually I know it is, and tied into the Raoul Pal thesis as well, but just not breaking down this way. But this is specifically focused on the Genius Act, since that is what got signed into law. And we will see, we're already seeing, actually, I think a couple other JP Morgan coin and Chase or whatever decided they're going to be doing a stable coin. PayPal's got its own, and they got some more support or something. So there's other treasury companies popping up and other banks or businesses doing their version of stable coins as well, because it's an easy way for them to make money. All right, let's get into the math and where BTC can go as early as 2027. So let's take a listen.
And now, where does this leave us into the future? Knowing, again, that Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent told us that he projects $3.7 trillion of stablecoins by 2030. That's a 14 times increase from there. So what we do is, first of all, we understand this isn't like a prediction. This is like policy. They pass bills to make this happen. It's a government policy to make this happen, not just a guess. So,
and remember, this is a goal. So Scott Bessent says this is what he wants to see happen. So they could overshoot, they could hit this exactly, they could be lower. But that's what Mark Moss is running his numbers off of, is the goals that the policy has implemented that they're shooting.
I want to look at the bear case the mid case, and the bull case. So going back through that data, we understand the lowest correlation was 0.34. That was the lowest one in 2021. That was when institutions just started coming in, and it was the weakest Bitcoin outperformance in that period. The mid was 0.81. This was during 2020 DeFi summer, and that was a historically robust liquidity.
Real quick, I didn't play the clip, but basically he showed you the math of how he got these. He was looking at the correlation between stablecoins and BTC, and these are the ratios over different points of time.
Driven averages, and the highest level that we had, back to the clarity, the regulatory clarity, was during this new ETF era. Bitcoin outpaced stablecoins because we had the clarity, and now we have the big checks. Now we're talking hundreds of billions of dollars coming into the market. Okay, so that was the range. So now what we want to do is put that onto the numbers. So we know that the current stablecoin assets under management today is about 250 billion, as I've already said. We know that the projected AUM, or Scott Bessent said it will go to, is 3.7, which is a 14.8 times multiple from here. And then today, at the time of this video recording, the Bitcoin price is about $118,000. Okay, so now we know the multiples, we know the ratios, we know the prices. So what does this mean for the future? This is the fun part. You ready for the drum roll here? And it doesn't end here, so don't leave after this. Okay, so in the bear case, based off of historical data, the lowest ratio of 0.34 and Bitcoin multiple 5 puts Bitcoin at $593,540, about 600 grand by 2030. Assuming that we hit that number of 3.7 trillion, as Scott Bessent said, all right, 600,000. Okay, in the base case, with the middle, which is a 0.83 ratio or a 12.2 multiple, puts Bitcoin's projected price at about 1.4, and the bull case, 0.75, 11 times puts it at about 1.3. So between
600K and 1.45 million for BTC by 2030. Now, what he shares later on in the video is the adoption or growth of stablecoins and how it's actually been parabolic. And so right now we're kind of on schedule to hit that target by 2027. And the kind of feather in the hat tip nod would be that most likely, if this is a goal, and we know Trump is a businessman, likes to say that he did exactly what he said he was going to do and or exceed expectations. This administration is on their way out, or at least a new regime has a chance to roll in 2028. So the logic of this being done before the end of this term, the 4-year term for President Trump, is 2027, 2028, right? So it just kind of makes sense. So if these goals are hit, then we could definitely see this by 2028. Which means, again, back to the thesis I've come up with, that the previous BTC cycles are null and void. They just don't hold up anymore due to the amount of liquidity, the maturity, and now the long-term players entering into the market. Previously, you had just retail, we FOMO in and out. But now when you're putting this stuff into ETFs and or coming soon, Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, or retirement funds, well, that's BTC that goes into these things and does not move. Even some of these treasury companies, they're not selling the Bitcoin. They're just stacking more of it. When it goes lower, they buy more. When it goes higher, they get loans out and buy more. So again, if you're sitting here thinking that everything is the same as it's always been, I feel like you're just going to be wrong. It just does not make any sense when you evaluate all of the new changes that come into place that were not part of the equation before. You can't run the same exact equation because the variables have changed. As the old saying goes, many variables exist, so many variables must be tested. And we have now many, many more. And these new players have never been around in previous cycles, and they haven't even been here for a full cycle yet. So these BTC treasury companies, aside from strategy, just popped up this year. So if their goal is to hodl and never sell, well, then what does that mean for the price of Bitcoin and the amount of Bitcoin available? When you start to have more and more hodl and companies pop up that never sell their Bitcoin, and they have limitless capital available to borrow against, for the most part, then it's common sense that the supply just continues to drop and the price has to go higher. And halvings will have less and less effect because that's just mathematical facts. We're sitting at 6 and some change BTC now. The next halving is only 3. So 3 Bitcoin a day dropped onto the market is not a big deal. That's not going to have a price impact when we just had a whale dump 80,000 and didn't even move the market. So I don't know how much harder and louder I can beat the drum, but if you miss out on this, at least I can say I did my part, because this cycle, the opportunity is here. We are chopping around 100, we'll call it 110K, giving you ample time to stay humble and stack sats. If you don't have your Bitcoin bag secured by 2028, then there's no hope for you. You're just gonna get left behind. All right, that's all I got. Hope that provides some value. Smash that HBO special, help a brother out. Like, subscribe, comment down below. And until next time, lift daily and achieve your impossible. See ya.